What's up, YouTube, and welcome to the next episode of my console collection series. Today we're going to take a very overdue look at the Nintendo Wii, a system that I've owned for quite some time, and just realized I've never made a video on my Wii collection. I saw that it is coming up on the 15-year anniversary of the Wii release in North America, so I figured this was an appropriate time to take a look back at this system. I did not buy my Wii at launch, but I did get it pretty soon after, and I remember the mania that was with all the stores and people trying to get a Wii shortly after release. It was very panicked. It was such a system that everybody felt they had to own, and was definitely the hot system of the 2006 holiday season for sure. I think I got my system very early in 2007, and it was one of those situations where most people were going to the Walmarts, Targets, Best Buys type stores to get their Wii, standing in huge lines and coming up empty. And I decided to take a left turn and go somewhere that I didn't think most people would go, and it actually worked out perfectly in my favor. I went to the failed retailer CompUSA, which was in its dying days in early 2007, and lo and behold, they had 3 Wiis on the shelf, no mania, no frenzy whatsoever, and I just happily grabbed one and was on my way. So what you're seeing here is a very early Wii system that I bought early in the system lifetime. So we're going to go ahead and take a look, as I do in these videos, briefly at the hardware, and then I'll move into my library. It is a very large game library, so I'm going to try to go pretty quick. I also want to give the caveat that a lot of the Wii games I have in my collection I have still never even played. It was more a matter of getting them when I felt they were rock bottom at price, and then testing them out at some point and deciding what I want to keep. So you're going to see a lot of games in this video that unfortunately I don't have a whole lot to say about, other than I just found them interesting, or I figured that would be a hard title to find in the future, so I went ahead and grabbed it, other than the things that I had early in my Wii collecting days from when the system was new. So I thought I'd take a look at the hardware first. As I said, this is a early model Wii. It is kind of an unusual design system. I do usually keep mine in vertical mode with using the stand that it comes with factory. You do have a SD card slot here in the front, power button, reset button, nothing too crazy there, and a single disc slot here. Because this is an early Wii model, it does have the flip top here with the 4 GameCube controller connections, and you can play backwards compatible, obviously, with this system. So it's kind of a nice feature of the early Wii systems. This one's been very reliable. I've never had any issues with it, and like I said, considering it's almost 15 years old, it's done me very well. The rear of the system has the 2 USB ports. You've got your AV out. It does support component video, but it does not support HDMI, which is really kind of a drag considering the era that the system came out, and then especially for how many years it lasted that they never made an HDMI version of the system. So unfortunately you did have to upgrade to the Wii U to get an HDMI output for the system. One thing that's unique about the back of the system is you have the mandatory sensor bar for all the sensor that goes to the controller. So I didn't pull that out here to show you that. Obviously most people have seen that, but I just wanted to call it out as kind of a unique feature of the hardware itself. And then of course your AC adapter out. Controller wise, you've got your Wiimote and Nunchuck, the proprietary combination pair. This is an early combination of these two, so it doesn't have the protector on it. It also doesn't have the Wii Motion Plus built in, but this is essentially what came with the system when it was new, and I've used since then. So definitely a unique controller. Not a big fan of the waggle controls with a lot of the games, other than a few that really optimize those. But when games tried to add that as a selling point to really make a Wii version that supported that, it was kind of a drag in most cases, and it really didn't make the gameplay much better. Just for comparison, I pulled out a late model Wiimote. This one is the one that has the Wii Motion Plus built into the controller, so it's a little bit more accurate, and then it does have the protector koozie around the controller as well. So just kind of showing that for comparison. And then just for a more traditional gaming experience, they did offer the classic controller, which I didn't get really until very recently, probably a couple years ago. So I don't have a long history with this, but definitely would like to use this for more of the games that support a more traditional controller layout. So that's a little bit about the hardware itself. Just wanted to kind of start off with that, and then we'll dive into the game library. So I'm going to try to go pretty quick. I think there's about 130, 140 games here to show. So please be patient as I work through the library. We'll try to show you what I've got here. So the first game I have is actually sealed. This is Animal Kingdom Wildlife Expedition. This is a Natsume published title by Success. I'm a big fan of Natsume games. This is a Pokemon Snap-ish type game with animals that you take a safari and take pictures. Obviously haven't tried it, but also a fan of the similar title Africa that Natsume published on the PS3. This one's a little bit more cartoonish, but should be up my alley, so hopefully crack the seal on that and try it someday. Next we have Aqua Panic. I remember this one making the lists as a rare title early on a few years ago, so I grabbed one out in the wild for a couple bucks. Figured it's not a bad one to sit on. I don't expect much from this, and I think it's kind of indicative of a lot of the shovelware you're going to see on the system. There's just so much shovelware, and I try to limit it in my collection as much as possible. That being said, here's some more shovelware. Here we have Aladdin Magic Racer, and this is another one that I just felt that this is going to be a potentially rare game. There's a lot of strange publishers on the system. This is Big Ben Publishing, and I just feel like a lot of these games like this had to have had a pretty short print run, so it doesn't hurt to grab them for a couple bucks, at least the last few years. A lot of these games are starting to go up in price now, so I feel like I did get many of these at the right time. But, you know, again, Wii stuff was very, very cheap as of like 2-3 years ago, especially. Next is Arcrise Fantasia. This is a exclusive RPG for the system. I unfortunately haven't had the time to put into this one, but I thought that this would be a neat one to grab for sure. And I do like that the Wii has some unique titles as far as RPGs go. I don't really know if there's anything that's considered a stone cold classic other than maybe Xenoblade, but overall seems to have some pretty unique titles that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Another RPG type game, I think it's a roguelike game, is Baroque. This is actually a pretty recent addition to my library. You can also get this one on PS2. I don't think it's a real classic, but you know, it is an Atlas release, and I think this one was developed by Sting, so worth grabbing for a few bucks. Next one is Bit Trip Complete. This is a collection of Atari-style games, and this one has really become pretty difficult to find. I was happy I got this a few years ago. This one also has a soundtrack CD, because I throw it on the floor, that's included in the case there. You get this really cool disc art on the disc as well. So, kind of a neat title. I have played that one a little bit, and I thought it was decent for kind of a new take on early-style video games. What console will be complete without a Bomberman game? This is Bomberman Land. Really one of the last hurrahs for Hudson Soft before they got gobbled up by Konami and then ultimately really ceased to exist as of today. So if you're a big Bomberman fan, of course you have to collect the Bomberman games, as I do. I don't really think that that one's a stone cold classic or anything, though. Some other publishers that really were known for some of the oddball games were like this one, Virtual Play Games. And essentially they were a subsidy of Maximum Family Games. You're going to see several Maximum Family Games releases in this video, as it seems to be some of their stuff is really some of the most oddball or rare titles on the system, I guess, as of today. This one, again, haven't put any time into, but, you know, one of those low-budget, shovelware-ish type games. Another classic series that I'm a big fan of is Bust-A-Move or Puzzle Bobble. We did get a release for the system. This one supports up to 8 players, as it gladly yells out on the cover, so it's kind of neat. Overall, this one is not one of my favorites in the Bust-A-Move series. I have played this one a little bit, but happy to see some Taito games at least on the system. Then we have The Calling, or just Calling, I guess it is. It's kind of a horror game, by Hudson. Hudson did support this system with some pretty unique titles. And this is a very Japanese-style survival horror game that I haven't put a whole lot of time into, but definitely think's one of the more interesting releases on the system. This one was starting to really go for a ton of money, and then it seemed to go get a repressing a few years ago that landed in GameStop, and that kind of crashed the value of it. So I don't know what that one's going to do long-term, but I think that's a pretty cool release. Next we have Captain America Super Soldier. This I kind of wanted just because it was a Sega game that was part of the Marvel series. Ultimately I have this on PS3 now, so I probably should sell this Wii version. I don't think this would be the one I would go to, having the choice of both systems. But nice that exists on the Wii. Next is a shooter, and there are a few unique shooters on the system that we got in the US that kind of surprised, to be honest. This is another one of the niche game publishers, Axis. And they put out some games like this that typically you wouldn't see on a game system in the US. This is part of the Castle Shikigami series. This is number 3. And I have played this one a little bit. I'm not a huge Shikigami fan, but, you know, overall I'm just happy we got this. and it was developed by Alpha System that made these games all the way back to the Dreamcast and PS2 era when the series started. So kind of a long-running series in Japan that was very odd. We got that released in the US. Of course, there is a Castlevania game, and this one really shook things up. This is an exclusive release for the system, and it is actually a fighting game starring the Castlevania characters. I played it a little bit. It's not complete blasphemy, I guess, but it's also not a classic by any means. And I guess I would prefer that we got a traditional Castlevania game on the system, but I'm glad they tried something new. Castlevania series was getting a little dodgy by this point anyway, so anytime you shake something up like that, I guess it's at least somewhat interesting. Next we have Centipede Infestation. This one is a WayForward developed game, which is why I wanted it. And haven't put any time into this one, but it was one that I figured I better grab. Some of those WayForward titles get a little difficult to find over time, so kind of neat that they brought the old arcade game back with a new twist, and hopefully this one's pretty good. Next up is Champion Jockey, which is a compilation of GI Jockey and Gallop Racer. So again, you get some pretty unique Japanese titles on the system, and here we have some horse racing action. So again, just figured, why not go ahead and try that out, just for the oddity of it all. Again, the Wii really was marketed to so many different audiences because it was such a good selling console that they didn't have to sell a whole lot of these games for it to be worth it, and taking a chance to release them here. So speaking of an odd niche title to release in the US especially, this is classic British motor racing, and it has British cars of the 60s and 70s, such as MGs and Rovers and Austins and things like that, which I'm a fan of, but I just find it very unusual that we got this game in the US. Probably would sell okay in Europe, but again, with the Wii, they took chances. Here we have Cooking Mama Cook-Off, and I did actually buy this one new. I was a huge fan of the early Cooking Mama games on the DS, and I figured, with the Wii, this is going to be excellent. I will play it at home and love it just as much. Unfortunately, this one took a lot of chances with the waggle controls, and it really didn't work out well. And I think I stopped buying them after this one, because there's some other Cooking Mama games on the Wii that ultimately I figured if that one wasn't good, it's not worth trying. And I kind of lost the plot with the series after that, too. Next we have a game called Counterforce, and this is a very cheap budget title that you see very commonly even today. But this was developed by a company called Hyper Dev Box at this point. But earlier than that, they had like 2 other names. One of them was Toka, and before that I think they were, I don't know, Arcade something or other. But essentially it was a pair of Italians, I believe, that really their goal with all the games they made was to make them feel like classic Sega arcade games of the 80s and 90s. And I would say with this game they succeeded. It actually has a very arcade feel to it, especially with the design of the menus and things like that too, and it kind of has that old classic Sega feel. It's not a great game by any means, but it is playable, and I just think that, for the $2 or $3 that this game goes for, it's worth going ahead and grabbing. I don't think this is going to be rare in the future by any means, but I like some of the stuff that those guys put out, and this one definitely falls in line with that. Next is one of the titles that used to appear on rare game lists. I don't know what people feel today. This is Crazy Machines, and this is one of the games by Mentor Interactive, and I think these were kind of edutainment type games. They also put out at least 1 or 2 other releases, so we may see some of those. I can't remember if I have them or not, to be honest. But haven't played that, obviously, but again, just gives you an idea of some of the scope of some of the things that came out on the system. This may be one of the rarest titles that I have in my collection. This is Cyberbike Cycling Sports, and strangely, this was published by Age Tech in the US. Why this game is unique is it was sold with a ride-on bicycle, and I don't have the bicycle. I actually found the game in a dollar bin at a game store a few years ago, and I figured, oh my god, I gotta grab that, because I don't really want to store the bike, and frankly, I just wanted to have the game for an oddity in my collection. So, can't really play it, I don't think, without the bike. I haven't ever tried, but, some point maybe I'll get that. I think it was sold on the Home Shopping Network, too, so it's one of the reasons why it's pretty rare. It may not have even had a true retail release, but definitely one of the more unique games that is on the Wii system, for sure. Next is one of the games that I really do like on the system. This is one I bought new, and I had a really hard time finding this game at retail when it came out. I think I ended up getting this at Toys R Us, actually. And this is the Data East Arcade Classics pack. It has, I believe, about 15 Data East games on it. Some of these are kind of hit or miss, but it does have some games that are pretty unique, and Data East always had that kind of unique style that went beyond some of their competition at the time in the arcades, so really like this collection. I wish there was a second volume of it. It kind of was set up in a way that they didn't necessarily pick all the most popular games, so they certainly could have done another volume of the series, but unfortunately this is as far as it went. So very nice that we got that. Another title that was highly recommended that I haven't even tried is Deadly Creatures, and it has a whole bunch of oddball insects and things like that I'm not really a big fan of, so I don't know if I would want to play this game. It also has the voice of Billy Bob Thornton and Dennis Hopper, so how about that star power with this one? But yeah, again, gives you an idea of some of the odd titles that are available on the system. Konami also put out a lot of unique releases. This is Dewey's Adventure, and it was kind of their own mascot character that they came up with. Don't really think it went anywhere. There might have been a Dewey's game on the DS also, I can't remember. But you can see it is a waggle control game, so that kind of hurts its playability in my eyes, but at least Konami tried some things on the system. Next we have Dino Strike. This is one of the games that was optimized to play with the Wii Zapper, or really just the Wiimote in general. It really functions as a light gun, and I do like light gun shooters a lot, so I was kind of trying to go for the full set of these on the Wii. I may have just about all of them. I can't remember if I've got everything, but I'm getting pretty close, I would say, if not. Next is a title that goes for quite a bit. This is Dokapon Kingdom. This is a game that I got very cheap years ago, and I believe it's kind of like a board game type release, if it's the one I think it is. This also came out on the PS2. I don't think I have the PS2 version. I'd have to check. But very sought-after title for the Wii. I don't really know why, to be honest. Maybe it's a pretty addictive game, but I just haven't put any time into it. So that's definitely on the to-try list. I'll see how that one is. Another one that came recommended from online reviews is Domino Rally. And this was a arcade-style game that UFO published, but it was actually developed by Success. And it has pretty unique Japanese art style to it. I have played this one a little bit, along with this kind of kooky main mascot character in the game. A lot going on in this game, and you can get this pretty cheap, or at least you used to be able to, so definitely worth picking up if you want something that's pretty unique on the Wii. I do have our friend Donkey Kong in the back, and that was kind of to celebrate this release. This is Donkey Kong Country Returns. I'm not a huge fan of all the first-party Nintendo stuff, and to be honest, there's some really big gaps as far as collecting that kind of stuff that you're going to see in the video. But this is one that I actually bought new, because I was a huge fan of the Donkey Kong Country games on the Super Nintendo, and I thought this captured the spirit of those games perfectly. There really was nothing that I was disappointed about when this came out. So, really happy this game exists. I think it's kind of got a little lost in the shuffle now. I think there's also a sequel to this, and I never even got it, to be honest. But this one I definitely enjoyed playing whenever it first came out. It was one of the ones that I rushed out and got. I was pretty excited that that got released. Speaking of the Maximum Family games that we showed you earlier, this is part of a subset that they put out of very cheap budget-style racing games. And they're all like kind of niche racing styles that typically wouldn't get game releases in many cases. So I tried to go for the full set of those. It's a very big pain in the butt to get all those. I'm missing at least 2 or 3 of them still. But I do have a bulk of them, and this is Drag and Stock Racer. I wouldn't expect anything from these. And also the parent company of Maximum Family Games is Nordic Games, so you'll see that listed on some of these games as well. But this is part of a little subset that I was going for and haven't finished yet to this day. Next is Dragon Quest Swords. This one I think I got at a flea market for $1. I don't really have a huge affinity for the Dragon Quest series, but, you know, again, for a cheap price like that, I'll go ahead and try it. This one I think also uses the Wii as like a sword. That was kind of a gimmick that you also saw with some of the games on the Wii, and translated into that one as well. Nice arcade collection is the Dragon's Lair trilogy. This has Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, and Dragon's Lair 2. These were early Laserdisc arcade games, and they got released on several systems, but honestly, this might be one of the best versions of it out there as far as video quality. You don't have that graininess like you do on Sega CD and things like that, so kind of a nice release that we got this on the Wii, and put a nice book into that series where they were releasing it on so many different systems. If you've watched my videos, you know I'm a big pinball fan. I try to buy pinball games, video pinball games, as much as possible. This is Dream Pinball. I have not played it. Couldn't tell you a whole lot about it, but I wouldn't expect much. That one's pretty cheap. Another oddball Japanese release that got released here is Escape from Bug Island. And it was this short-lived publisher by Eidos called Secret Stash Games. And I guess their idea was to publish some of these niche games as well as Japanese releases. So this is a survival horror game. It was originally developed by Spike in Japan. I haven't put any time into it, but this is one I would definitely like to try, as it is a system exclusive, so that's kind of nice. And I don't know what the bug and insect theme is with this console, but there definitely is some of that. This was another flea market find for $1. This is Excitebots Trick Racing. And Nintendo keeps trying to revitalize the Excite Bike series with all these spin-offs, but I don't really know if they relate to the series that well, so don't really have high hopes for that, but didn't put a lot into it. We also have Final Fantasy Fables Chocobo's Dungeon, and the Chocobo Dungeon series has gone on for quite some time. We just haven't got a whole lot of these games in the US. We did get one on the PS1, but I think that might be it as far as releases on Sony system, or sorry, home systems. So kind of nice to get another one of those. They are dungeon crawler type games, obviously, but interesting to have a little spin-off of the Final Fantasy universe that is unique to the Wii. Next is one of the Nintendo RPG properties. This is Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn. I've played a few of the Fire Emblem games, but I don't think I ever got to this one. And ultimately, this is one I just figured I better hold on to, because they do tend to get pretty expensive. I didn't pay very much for this one, but I do like the art style on the cover, so maybe one worth a try at some point. Another series of games I tend to like to play is firefighting games. A lot of them are fun. This one is not really that great. This is Real Heroes Firefighter, and strangely this got a PS4 release only about a year or two ago. Many, many years after this Wii version. So if you want to play the enhanced version, I guess that would be a little bit better, but that one's not one of the greater ones of all time. Another publisher I really like is Xseed Games, and they put out some really unique Japanese titles on the Wii. This one is Fishing Resort, and this is a surprisingly expensive game, or at least it used to be, for the Wii, but definitely has a nice style to it. It's one that I popped in, played for a few minutes, but would definitely like to play a little bit more of. Kind of has like a collecting aspect, so that you're, not only catching the fish, but saving them and putting them in your aquarium, in-game aquarium. Next is another long-running series. This is Fortune Street. This is a series of board games that's gone on for, I think, back to the PC Engine, maybe even earlier than that, maybe even Famicom. But this might be the very first one we ever got in the US, and this one I think sold here because they did incorporate Nintendo properties as well as Square properties in the game. So you see some of the Dragon Quest characters as well as some of the Nintendo first-party stuff in there. Overall, I think this one did pretty good, probably because of all those mascot characters being included, but I don't know if they've released any other Fortune Street games here since then, so maybe another series we'll see pop up in the future. Next we have Fragile Dreams. This is another one of the Xseed titles. I think I was going for the full set of these. I may have them all now, I can't remember. Subtitle, this one's Farewell Ruins of the Moon. And one thing that's nice about the Xseed titles is they have reversible covers. So I think this is kind of the standard side, but there is a reversible cover you can flip over if you like it. It's kind of a nice little feature. Another oddball title is Fritz Chess. This was also one that appeared on rarity lists for the Wii, if they're even valid. But, again, just kind of shows that there's a market for a lot of different styles of games on the system for sure. Next we have Furu Furu Park, and this was actually a game that I bought new. This is a series of Taito mini-games, and it's actually based on a PS1 game called the Kaiten Mawasunda, and I imported that game back in the day. So I was very surprised to see this game surface on the Wii. I guess it was just because it fit well with the waggle controls, or at least theoretically. And they're almost like micro games. They don't last very long at all, but you do see a lot of classic Taito properties show up in the games, so definitely a good game for Taito fanboys like me, but not sure this one would be the best fit for most people just because the minigames don't really have a whole lot of depth to them. The PS1 version of this actually worked really well with the DualShock controller. It took advantage of the analog sticks, so actually I prefer playing that over this Wii version. Next we have Geometry Wars Galaxies. I have not played this game. I think it has a pretty good reputation. It has this neat cover, kind of reflective. Maybe that's why I bought it. I like shiny things. I don't know. But it is kind of a retro style game, so definitely something that would be in my alley. Next we have is Ghost Squad. This is a Sega release, and it is another one that supports the Wii Zapper, or just the Wii using light gun type support. This was developed by AM2, so it was one of their internal arcade developers, and this was an arcade game also as well, exclusive to the Wii on the home release, so kind of neat that Sega brought us some stuff like that that we couldn't get on other systems. Next we have another weird one. This is Professor Heinz Wolf's Gravity. I took a chance on this one. I don't really think this is something I'm necessarily going to like, but I'm guessing it's a physics-based puzzle game, so maybe it'll add some brain power if you play that one. Another oddball release is Gremlins Gizmo. I don't see this game very often at all. I'm not even familiar with this publisher. I think they make action figures, if that's the one I'm thinking it is. So I don't really know why they got into the video game market, but, you know, I'm sort of a mild Gremlins fan. I like the movies, but I don't really go beyond that. This is one of my absolute favorites on the Wii. This is GTI Club by Konami. And this is a great arcade-style racer. I highly, highly recommend this game. It has a lot of mini-games built in for extra fun, but really a lot of fun to play. Very fast-paced, and some nice car selection. It has licensed cars that, primarily European stuff that I definitely like, and just a really nice job. A lot of polish that went into this game. It seems to be pretty hard to find, though, so definitely grab that if you see it out and about. We do have some entries in the Guilty Gear series. This is a long-running fighting series that has about 1 million sequels, but this is the hard-to-find one, theoretically. This is Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus, and the Plus is what makes this the difficult-to-find version. There's a non-Plus version of this also on the Wii, so you have to check to see that this is the version. This one also comes with a soundtrack CD, so just kind of a nice bonus that is included with that. I'm going to fully admit here, I did buy into the Guitar Hero hype when this game came out, so I did buy this with the guitar and the big box set. I've got it stashed away somewhere, and for one summer or winter or whatever season it was, I was totally hooked on Guitar Hero. My friends were too. It was a game where like a lot of casual game players would definitely sit down and play with you, people that normally wouldn't touch my video games, so there was definitely a mania around this game at the time, and this was the one that was my entry to the series. I never played the first or second game, so definitely played a ton of Guitar Hero 3 on the Wii. However, my fad didn't last real long. I bought the follow-up to that, Guitar Hero World Tour. I didn't like this one nearly as much. I don't know if it was just because it was more of the same with new songs, but played this one a little bit and then never bought another Guitar Hero game after that. So I have not picked up my guitar in years, but maybe those would hold up today, maybe they wouldn't, who knows. But that was definitely a fad of the mid to late 2000s that I don't know if we'll see come back ever, was all the plastic guitars and drum sets and things like that. This was another gift that Sega gave us. This was 2 more arcade releases that they brought exclusively home to the Wii, and it's LA Machine Guns as well as Gunblade New York. Some really cool arcade games that I've played, the arcade versions as well, and they work great with the Wii Zapper also, or just the Wii mode in light gun mode. So Sega definitely did us a big favor by bringing us some of these unique titles that we wouldn't otherwise get. Another Wii Zapper type game is Gunslingers. This was French developed, and it's actually got a pretty unique title or premise to it with a Wild Wild West theme. Really like playing this, and you can play this in 4-player mode, which is kind of a nice feature of it. There's also a big box version of this with the plastic guns that were packed in. I've got a sealed copy of that. I just forgot to grab it off the shelf for the video, but something I'm definitely holding on to because I think it's going to be pretty hard to find this in the future. Not a big publisher here. Valcon Games. They weren't really known for putting out a whole ton of releases, and their stuff seems a little difficult to find. I'm going to pause here for just a moment and then pick up with the next pile I've got here. One moment, please. Alright, sorry about the cut. I wanted to show the big box version of Gunslingers. This is the one that came with the 2 plastic revolvers in it. Unique to this title, mine is actually still sealed, and just kind of a weird little pack there that you can also get for the Wii. So I thought I would show that as well, along with some of the other stuff in the video here. So anyway, we'll continue on with the rest of the standard releases. Next is Heavenly Guardian. This is a game you can also get on PS2, and it's very much a homage, I guess, to Kiki Kai Kai or Pocky and Rocky. It feels very much part of that series, although by a different developer, Starfish. So if you like that game, definitely a decent one to pick up. It's kind of a top-down shooter and pretty fun, although not as good as the original. Then we have a surprisingly fun game that I don't really hear a whole lot of people talk about. This is Help Wanted by Hudson Soft, and it is a mini-game collection where you have to complete little jobs and tasks to earn money and progress through the game. So pretty fun, actually. I remember playing this a few years ago and getting hooked on it. I don't think I made it through all 50 jobs, but definitely an interesting title, and also another Wii exclusive. Like I said, Hudson gave this system quite a bit of love on their way out from kind of ceasing to be a developer. At one point I was also buying some of the Axis titles. I don't really know if I was going for a set or what, but I'm not really a big fishing guy, but they did import some, or release some Japanese fishing titles for the system. First one of these is Hooked, Real Motion Fishing. I think this one's the one that came with a fishing controller also. I might even have it somewhere, I'd have to dig it out. That basically snaps onto the nunchuck, and so you can use that to play the game. And then, of course, there had to be a sequel, so this is Hooked Again, and this is just more of the same. Also compatible with that fishing snap-on controller thing. And this one you don't see that often, so I think that was kind of why I wanted to grab it. Some more love from Sega, and more light gun type action. They did a nice compilation of House of the Dead 2, which was released on the Dreamcast, as well as House of the Dead 3, which was only released as a standalone game on the Xbox, the original Xbox. So kind of a nice pack that you get both of those games in this compilation. And again, designed for the Wii Zapper, or you can just use the Wiimote for some good light gun action. So nice that, you know, again, Sega really treated us well with some of those light gun games for the system. Next is a weird one. This is Impossible Mission. This is based on an old computer game from the 80s, I believe, Commodore 64. And this game also had a release on NES, the original version of it, so I have that as well. Not exactly a big fan of that, but I got this for a couple bucks, and I thought, again, a very strange title to make it into the US. Probably much more popular in Europe than here. This is another great Wii exclusive. This is Ivy the Kiwi, or sort of a Wii exclusive. There's also a DS version of the game, I should say that. But this was actually a game by Yuji Naka, creator of Sonic. And again, Xseed brought this over to the US. Very creative gameplay. Does rely on some Wiimote waggling, which is unfortunate because I do really like the design of the game. But it is a pretty neat title that you don't see too often. Then we have another very oddball of the system. Some of these I was just going for because where else are you going to find stuff like this? This is Jerry Rice and his dog Nidus's Dog Football. And yes, it is part of the Pet Sports League of pet football players. I don't really know why this exists, but I guess there is a market for everything. And so one thing you'll notice is this was kind of thought to be a rare title, and then I guess some wholesalers just like flooded the market with sealed copies of this, so I think you can still get sealed copies of this really cheap. But I went ahead and grabbed it because where else are you going to find something like that? This one's a pretty unique title, another Xseed release in the US. This is Ju-On the Grudge, and it is a haunted house simulator. So one of the interesting horror-style games for the system. And I think this one has gone up a little bit. I haven't checked it out lately, but another one of those Xseed titles that they probably didn't make a whole lot of, but they're actually pretty neat titles. I'm not a fan of the original series that spawned this, but this is Kamen Rider, Dragon Knight, and D3 Publisher actually was another kind of niche publisher for the Wii, as well as some other systems at the time. Much more known in Japan, but they did actually have a small US office, I guess, that brought out some of these releases. And this one seems to be a little bit more difficult to find as well. So I think that's why I went ahead and grabbed it when I saw it one day. There are some Kirby games for the Wii. So first off, we have Kirby's Epic Yarn. This is one of the earlier release ones. This one sold pretty well, so you do see this one pretty often. Don't think I paid a whole lot for that. And then we have the more interesting one. This is Kirby's Return to Dreamland. So it's a proper release in the Dreamland series, of which we hadn't had many for several years, it felt like, before this. So definitely like the Kirby games. This is one I'd like to put some more time into, but one of the more interesting, first or second party titles, whatever you want to call it, that Nintendo released here. This one is neat. This is Klonoa, and it is a remake of the PS1 Klonoa game, Door to Phantomile, which has always been one of my favorites on the PS1. This one has nice fresh coat of paint, and used to be kind of a bargain way to get the game if you couldn't afford the PS1 original or didn't want to seek that one out. But now this one's starting to go up too, so seems like anything Klonoa has starting to turn to gold, as it's a pretty interesting mascot character, and the games have a nice design to them that Namco brought us over the years. Wish we'd get some more Klonoa games. This is another great Hudson Soft title. This is one I bought new. This is Koro Rinpa Marble Mania, and it's an interesting marble maze game, I guess would be the best way to put it. If you like games like Monkey Ball, you'd probably enjoy this, and definitely has a very nice Japanese flavor to it. I put quite a bit of time into this when it first came out. It was one of my first Wii games that I bought, but I definitely think this one's pretty fun. Then we have another Xseed title. This is The Last Story. This one also had a deluxe version that came in a bigger box. I don't have that version, but again, a nice, unique, exclusive Wii RPG game. So very cool to get that. Not put much time into this one, but I have heard good things, so I'd like to play that a little bit more. This one I bought last year just because it just seemed like such a strange oddity on the Wii. This is Lego Batman, the video game, which obviously is something I don't care about, but I thought it was interesting because it came in this weird game with DVD video combo pack, and you actually get the original Batman 1989 movie on a DVD that doesn't even have a label on it, along with the game disc. But what I thought was weird about this is the Wii doesn't even play DVDs, so who's the market for this? It's very strange that it would give you that bonus disc that you can't even use in the Wii, so anyway, I don't know if that'll be rare someday, but I thought it was interesting, so I picked it up. Another unique Sega title, this is Let's Tap, and kind of a collection of mini games that has uses the speaker in the Wiimote to play as a gameplay device. So it's kind of an interesting way of using some of the technology in a different, unique way. The Japanese version of this actually came with like little cardboard boxes, and I think there may have been a US version of that too, I'm not positive. But you can kind of see like the implications of that here, or you could just set it down on a table and basically function the same way. But played the game a little bit, but again, requires just some unique gameplay ideas to play. Yet another Xseed release. This one is also pretty well known. This is Little King's Story. Has a nice art style to it. Definitely one I'd like to put some more time into at some point. Then we have another Hudson Soft game. I wonder if I have all the Hudson games. I'm not sure. I should take a list of that. But this is Lost in Shadow. This was a earlier release for the Wii as well. Known for having kind of a unique gimmick to it and style. I think this game got some pretty good reviews even back in the day. And definitely excited to have, again, some more of these quality Hudson titles brought over. Next is a rare title that I happened to find in the wild. It's Madden 09 All Play, and you're saying, who cares about that? What's so special about that? It's got to be dirt common. But no, this is the Dina Favre Hope Foundation Breast Cancer Edition, which comes with this little slip sleeve that was a special release of the game that was only sold for a limited time. And I believe donations from sales of it went to the Breast Cancer Foundation. So, nice cause, but definitely a collecting oddity. And I think there's also a 360 version of this with the slip sleeve as well. So, other than that, game's exactly the same as the retail version. But definitely one to grab if you happen to just see it on a shelf for, normal price for Madden 09. And definitely one of the weirder things that you can find on the Wii. Next up is Mad Dog McCree Gunslinger Pack, and this is another collection of Laserdisc arcade games. Again, nice that they brought this out because you get these at a little bit higher resolution than you would on some of the classic consoles. And it comes with Mad Dog 2, as well as The Last Bounty Hunter. So you get 3 of those Laserdisc Wild Wild West light gun action games. These are very dated, but they're kind of quaint, and I always liked the American Laser games, light gun games. Wish we got some more packs of those on the system. This next one is Major Miner's Majestic March, and it is kind of a rhythm action game. But what I like about this is the artwork style is the same creator as Parappa. So some of the characters on there look similar art style. You kind of notice that. It's the same company, Nana Onsha, that released Parappa the Rapper originally, as well as Jammer Lammy and Parappa 2, of course, as well. So, kind of a neat game that, again, is a Wii exclusive. Next up is yet another Hudson title. This is the sequel to the other Koru Renpa game. This is Marble Saga, and this one I got much later. I didn't put much time into this one. I think the other gimmick with this one is it is also compatible with the Wii Balance Board, and I do not own a Wii Balance Board, nor do I really want one, because they take up a ton of space. But another gimmick that you can use with that. This one's a very popular release. This is Mario Kart Wii. I didn't buy this when it came out. I got this at a garage sale for $1 or $2, I think. And I like some of the original Mario Kart games, but the series had kind of worn its welcome out by the time this game came out. I think this one's, considered pretty decent, but overall probably not one of the best Mario Kart games. So, and then this one also had the gimmick of supporting the Wii Wheel, which you see Mario and Luigi using on the cover there. It's basically just a snap-in device for the Wiimote and uses some of the motion controls. So, again, a gimmick of which this system had no shortage of. This next one is one of the first games I bought for the Wii. This was a very early release. This is Metal Slug Anthology. Definitely a big fan of the Metal Slug games. I was so excited when this game came out. However, what is weird about this collection is it has, I think, 3 or 4 different control options, and none of them are good. It also doesn't support the classic controller, if I remember right. So it has some major issues with what they tried to institute with the control scheme. You can also get this on the PS2 and the PSP, and I would probably recommend those as well. At the time, I just had a Wii, that I decided to go for because I figured it was the newest, best system. It had to be the best version, but I would probably stick to this on PS2 over the Wii version. Alright, next up is another one that I think is pretty difficult to find. Don't really hear a lot of people talking about this game, but I think it's kind of neat. This was based on a Japanese series that went back to the PS1 at least, and maybe even further than that. And it is Minicopter Adventure Flight, another Axis Games published release here. And basically it's kind of a pilot sim with these little mini helicopters or some mini games, things like that. Kind of has like a Toy Story style to the gameplay. But it's pretty fun. And again, I think one that will be difficult to find in the future because I don't see it too often. Next is another release by Starfish, published by UFO, called The Monkey King, The Legend Begins. And this was also related to a early Taito arcade game. I think it was originally called Gokuraku Chuka Daisen, or Cloudmaster as we know it on the Master System in the US, and basically just a remade version of that. It's an okay game, and also they try to institute some waggle controls, which didn't really work out in its favor. But, at least for a budget title, it was not a bad shooter, so worth picking up if you find it for a couple bucks. The next one here is another very, very weird game on the Wii that I'm very surprised came out in the US. This is Mr. Bean's Wacky World, and again, it's by one of these fly-by-night developers or publishers called Red Wagon Games. They put out quite a bit of shovelware in the system. Mr. Bean was nowhere near as popular in the US as he was in the UK, and so again, very, very surprised we got this game here. Probably sold okay in Europe, but definitely one of the odder releases in the US Wii. Then we have another Bandai Namco game. This is the Munchables, and this one had a couple things that make it unique if you want to get it complete. There was originally a sticker included in it, and it seems like most of the time when I see this game, I don't see the sticker, so something to be on the lookout for if you're looking for this one. The other thing is some of the Wii games have a little spine artwork icon, and this one is notable because it's a little pile of poo. So hey, little in-joke there that they included, and it actually is part of the gameplay in this weird game. So the other thing I think is interesting about this one, it's probably hard to make out on video, but the artwork on it, it's almost like they messed up, and it's very low res. When I originally bought this, I thought like I had a printed cover or something like that, and then I've looked at multiple copies of these, and they're all like that. So just a little glitch with the artwork on that one. Next one is a great title for the Wii. This is Muramasa the Demon Blade. And this one I would highly recommend, or you can also get it on the Vita. The Vita version's getting pretty expensive now too, but definitely a great, very stylish ninja action game, of which I'm definitely a fan. I never completed this one. I'd like to kind of go back to it, but definitely had some things I liked about the gameplay for sure, and definitely a genre I'm a big fan of, so I was happy we got this game. It felt exclusive at the time, but then of course the Vita version came out as a remastered version with some extra features a few years later. This is one of the more interesting Nintendo first-party published titles. This is the Mystery Case Files, The Malgrave Incident, and it's basically like a detective story type novel, I guess, thing would be the best way to put it, where you have to collect facts and things like that to put the story together. But this game came out very late, and like I said, for a first-party published title, very unusual choice by Nintendo. So I don't really know why they went with that one, but maybe one to look out for in the future. Sega also brought us a remake of Nights. This is Journey of Dreams. I wasn't a huge fan of Nights on the Saturn. I'm a big Saturn fan. I know that was like the signature game of the system. But ultimately, it didn't really capture me at the time, so when this Wii version came out, I never really played it, to be honest. But one I'd like to go back to and try. Maybe it's a little bit better than I'm expecting it'll be. So, I don't know. Some of the Yuji Naka stuff was a little bit hit or miss, and this wasn't one of my favorites. Then we have a series that I believe started on the Wii, but you can now get it on just about anything. This is the No More Heroes series, and this one did use the Wiimote with some unique gameplay functions. It was a more mature story than what you got on a lot of the Wii games for a Japanese developed game. And so, you know, kind of a neat one that came out from Grasshopper Manufacturer, and then of course you can play this on multiple systems now. It's no longer as interesting as it once was. And then we have the sequel to that, which is No More Heroes 2, Desperate Struggle. This one I haven't really put any time into, but definitely has some unique features in it that were interesting at the time. Now not so much because the series is on everything, and then there's more sequels that go beyond the system. We have another shooter. This was kind of a budget title. This one's not that great. It's Ocean Commander. I think there's also a DS version of this under a different title. But kind of a basic horizontal shooter. Some of these felt just like, I don't know, Japanese PC games or something like that they brought out on the Wii. They didn't really feel like console games. Next is a arcadey style puzzle game called Octomania. I'm definitely a big fan of the genre. It seemed to have kind of died out by this era. It was more of a like 32-bit type of thing, that there were so many of these Japanese arcadey style puzzle games, but you know, it's neat that we got one on the Wii. And you can get this one pretty cheap, I believe, still. Then we have a long-running series. This is the only game I own in the series, but I never have even played it. This is Oni-Chanbara Bikini Zombie Slayers. And basically you have a giant bikini-clad woman who will go around and kill zombies and stuff like that. Another mature title, of which there's not a whole ton of as far as Japanese content for the system. This is by a Japanese developer named Tamsoft, and this originally started out as a budget title in Japan, but I think became so popular that they became full-price releases over time. There's also multiple more in the series that go beyond this, but I've never played any of them, so maybe they'll hook me someday. I just haven't got around to it. Another Wii exclusive that's pretty neat is Opuna. This is one of the non-tactical RPGs or non-Dynasty Warrior style games from Koei, so nice to see them breaking it up into a little bit different genre for a change. And this one has some nice implementation of the nunchuck. It's a pretty interesting Japanese developed title, so I think this one's gone up in price quite a bit, but I can kind of understand why. It's one of the more unique games for the Wii. I don't really have a history with this, but most people my generation do, and that is the Oregon Trail. And very unusual to see this as a console release. This was one of the early games from computer games from the 80s that people really know and love. Even though growing up, all the computers we had at my school, we never had this game. And it seems like a lot of people played it at school. So, I don't know. I don't have the history or the nostalgia around it, but for those that do, this is a pretty desired game for the Wii, just because, again, a lot of people have that history with the Oregon Trail. And that one's all gussied up, of course. Next is another Xseed release that is exclusive to the Wii. This is Pandora's Tower, and definitely becoming one of the more pricey releases, but really one that I'd like to dig into, and again, haven't. But Xseed brought us out some really interesting Japanese titles, and again, very cool that most of those are exclusives. Another entry in a long-running series. This is Penny Racer's Party Turbo Q Speedway. And this is part of the Koro Q series of games. I've got a few of them, but there's so many. It's hard to know what to buy and what not to buy. This one does support 4-player action, so that's kind of nice, but I haven't really played it. And they do have licensed Japanese cars in the game, which I think is pretty cool. So you see some stuff here like the Nissan March that we never got in the US. For me as a car geek, that's cool to see. Another RPG that you can also get on the PS2 and I think the PSP is Phantom Brave. And this one has a slipcover. So you can kind of see the different art there under the slipcover. A lot of them seem to be missing it. So I remember when I was looking for this, I wanted to make sure I got one that had the slipcover. And then there's a bonus disc with some art on it, things like that. It's one of the NIS games. NIS put out a few things on the on the Wii, but they seem to be mostly stuff that you could also get on the PS2. So not necessarily exclusives from their games that they published. Next is one that I played early on in my Wii days. This is Pinball Hall of Fame, the Williams Collection. Ultimately, I have this on the PS3 now, and it's in higher def, so I prefer that version. But it does have a nice compilation of early Williams pinball games, which I'm a big fan of. So you get 10 tables included in this, and definitely a big fan of those, so always welcome those pinball collections. Next, we are back to another one of those Maximum Family games, racing series games. This is Rally Racer. Some very crude artwork on the cover. And in-game, it is also very crude. Unlicensed cars, very low budget, but those are some of the more difficult to find games. Next, we have Rhythm Heaven Fever. I am a big fan of the Rhythm Heaven games. In fact, I first started out with these on the original game, which was exclusive to the Japanese Game Boy Advance, Rhythm Tengoku, and imported that very early on and got hooked on it. However, by the time the Wii game came out, I felt like I'd played quite a few of these, and so they weren't as addicting as the originals. Maybe I just don't prefer playing these on a console. They actually work really good as portable games. But you can get other Rhythm Heaven games for the DS. I think there might be a 3DS game as well. Not positive about that. And then obviously now there's I think there's one for the Switch. I don't know. Again, I can't keep up. First party Nintendo stuff, once they find a hit, they just milk it forever. And it's hard for me to keep track because I don't buy all that stuff as it comes out. This next one I'm going to show is a Wii U title. It's Rodeo the Sky Soldier. This is another Yuji Naka developed game. But why I feature this one in this video is it actually includes the Wii version of the game as well. So you get two discs. One is for the Wii and one's for the Wii U. Mine is still sealed because I never got a Wii U. So I was kind of holding on to this, like thinking, well, once I get a Wii U, I'll try that one and then I'll go back and play the Wii version of the game. What I've heard is the Wii version of the game is actually better. And I think it's because it was intended to be a Wii game originally, and then they rushed a Wii U version because it was taking a little bit long development-wise. So nice that they included both discs in the pack. This one seems to be readily available, so if you're curious. And then I guess the other thing that's cool is since you get two separate discs, one for Wii, one for Wii U, they also include two separate manuals inside the pack too. So you got a nice Wii artwork manual that's included in here as well. Another Hudson Soft release. This is one I haven't played, but just again, kind of was going after Hudson stuff. This is Rooms, the Main Building, and unfortunately it's a slide puzzle game. I absolutely hate slide puzzle games, so even Hudson probably can't save that genre for me, but if that's your thing, that might be one to check out. Next is a game, Rygar, the Battle of Argus, and this is a remake of the PS2 Rygar game that I actually was a pretty big fan of. I'm not usually big into 3D versions of classic, Nintendo games and arcade games, but this one I thought actually turned out pretty good on the PS2. I haven't gone back and played this Wii version yet to see what they changed or enhanced about it, but ultimately I might like this one as well, so might be worth giving a shot. I don't see this game very often either, so I don't know if this is going to be a more difficult one to find in the future or not, but I think most people, didn't really know Rygar in the first place unless you were there back in the 80s, and probably a more obscure remake than a lot of the other more common arcade games in the era. Another NIS release, this is Sakura Wars So Long My Love. You can also get this one on the PS2. This is a long-running series that I think this is the very first game we ever got in the US. Now there's some other Sakura Wars games for the PS4 that they released here, but at the time this is pretty unique that they took a chance on this, and these games are kind of known, they're RPGs, but they also have some dating sim elements to them, so that's kind of what made them unique, and also why they thought maybe it wouldn't be a good fit for US audiences for so long. But at some point, definitely gave it a chance. Another long-running Japanese series that was early to show up on the Wii in the US was Shiren the Wanderer. These are dungeon crawlers from Chunsoft, and the series has been going on for many, many moons in Japan, but finally they released one of these here. They also have, I think, a couple others. You can get this game for, or at least a series game for the DS in the US, as well as the Vita has a Shiren game also. So, kind of neat to see that. Atlas brought us those. This is a game I was surprised to see show up as a first-party release in the US. This is Sin and Punishment Star Successor, and this was developed by the great developer Treasure, that's been around since the early days of gaming. Sin and Punishment was an excellent N64 game in Japan that Nintendo and everybody else passed on bringing here, and it's kind of sad because it really was a great, easy-to-pick-up game even without knowing Japanese. So then, I guess, because of all that pent-up demand, Nintendo decided themselves to bring it here of the Wii. So this one I haven't played as much as the original on N64, but I've heard some pretty good things. This one, it seems like they made way too many, and I see sealed copies of this even today pretty often. So might be one to grab before these dry up, because I think it's a pretty neat series. Next is another Xseed title. This is Skycrawler's Innocent Aces, which is part of the Project Aces series. So, a flight sim style game with some cutscenes and things like that. This one does have their reversible art cover, but I'm not really into that style of game, so probably won't give that one a chance, but it is an Xseed title. Another one of those cheap Maximum Racing games is Maximum Racing Super Carts. This one is not one of the more common ones. Again, you kind of have that generic racing artwork. I kind of feel like these are all running the same game engine, and then they just changed the vehicle of choice for the game on whatever they needed to do. Pretty low effort. Next up is a very popular game for the system, and I would agree why. This one I bought new. This is New Super Mario's Wii. And Super Mario Brothers Wii, I should say, and it comes in this cool red case. Really excellent remake, or not remake, but continuation of the classic 2D Mario art style. I didn't play the sequel to this one. I'm kind of curious how that is on the, I don't know what it's on, 3DS I think, or DS, I don't even know. But I definitely enjoyed this and put a lot of time in this, and easy pick up and play game that anyone can try. So I think they did a nice job bringing the series back. I'm really happy this game came out on the Wii. And, you know, I think definitely a game that will live on in the Wii history that they released that. Next up is a big disappointment. This is Samba de Amigo by Sega. I was a massive fan of Samba de Amigo on the Dreamcast. I own 2 sets of the original maracas and have played the game to death, as well as the Japanese-only remix, Samba de Amigo 2000. This one, basically, they just kept everything the same from the original game and then added really shoddy motion controls using the Wiimote. It doesn't work well at all. Theoretically, it should, but the accuracy is not there. And unfortunately, this was an earlier release before the Wii Motion Plus came out, so it doesn't support it and isn't enhanced, obviously, by maybe that which would have improved it. Very disappointing, but, you know, otherwise I love the theme of the game, and I'm a really big fan of the originals, but I would definitely say pass on that on the Wii. SNK released a lot of these arcade collections on the system. We already talked about Metal Slug. This is the Samurai Showdown anthology, and you get, I think, six Samurai Showdown games included in this, as well as like Samurai Showdown 6, which I think was exclusive to this as far as a home console release outside of Neo Geo systems. So kind of neat to see that. This one you can also get on PS2 and PSP, so kind of pick your poison as far as that goes. And then speaking of SNK, we have SNK Arcade Classics Volume 1. Again, it comes out also on PS2 and PSP. And you get a nice selection of early SNK games. They didn't completely put in all their best titles with this one, though, because clearly they intended to make sequels to this. Although they never did, other than the SNK Arcade Classics Volume 0 of early 80s titles that came out for the PSP in Korea, of all places. Which I have, but there never was a proper Volume 2 to this, unfortunately. Some of the emulation on this is a little bit spotty. Some of these games, if I have them on Neo Geo CD, I much prefer to play that version. But for, you know, a cheap way to get a lot of these Neo Geo titles, it's not a bad collection. And definitely worth grabbing, you know, at least on one of the systems that it came out on. Alright, so we are in the home stretch. I know it is a lot of games to cover in this video, but I wanted to kind of show you everything that's in the library. So we'll keep on rolling as quick as I possibly can. So next up is Summer Stars 2012. I don't really care about Olympic games, but actually it's an unlicensed Olympic game even. So I just thought this was a weird title. I found it for like $1. Decided to grab it. Another one that I thought was going to be great, but was kind of meh, was Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz. I love the early Monkey Ball games, but then the series kind of lost the plot after the second one, and this one tried to institute some waggling, and it didn't really work out so well. So ultimately, would recommend playing Monkey Ball on the GameCube over that one. Then we have a massive hit for the system. This is one I bought new, Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I liked the first two Smash Brothers games a lot. I played them quite a bit. Didn't get like obsessive about it as some people do. But when this Wii game came out, I thought it looked good, but I didn't really play it very much. This one they tried to spice up by including things like Sonic the Hedgehog and Solid Snake, just to add some other characters into it. But to me, Smash Brothers kind of lost its luster with this one, and I never went back. I haven't played any of the newer ones since then. So maybe controversial. I don't know. Maybe some people would kind of agree with me, but I don't really hear a whole lot of people that fond of that Smash game, especially. Then we have another weird one. This is Super Swing Golf Season 2. I'm not a big golf video game fan, but this one has a lot of classic Tecmo characters in it, so I had to get it for that reason. So you have Ryu Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden. You've got a character from Tokobot. You got the Tecmo Bowl guy. You've got Bomb Jack, one of my favorites from early Tecmo history. I'm not sure who she is, but regardless, Tecmo tried to bring out some of their obscure mascot characters into a cutesy golf game. So may have to pop that in someday and see how it is. Next up is another one of the light gun style games. This is Target Terror. This is based on an arcade game and also an exclusive home release on the Wii. Didn't really love the arcade game that much, but I think it's cool that this got released. And it seems to be getting kind of expensive now. It was passed over for a long time, but all of a sudden everyone seems to want this game. Another one that's kind of a weird entry on the Wii is Tatsunoko vs. Capcom Ultimate All-Stars, which is part of the Versus fighting series. However, this one deviates, and it doesn't have Marvel characters. It has characters from classic anime franchises. So, definitely some fans of that. It's just I don't have a whole lot of history with that. But it is a Wii exclusive, and I think it's kind of neat that that came out. So over time, I think this one will probably be appreciated just for being a unique entry in the Versus series, but not something I just have enough interest in to really dig into like some of the other Versus games. This is another kind of weird one, Trackmania Built to Race. I think I got this for like $1 also, but a lot of track creation and things like that, some racing. Might be okay, I don't really know. Another series I really loved on the DS, we have the Trauma Center games from Atlas. And again, I love these on the DS, but when it came time to the Wii, I think there were some motion controls built into this, and it didn't keep my interest the same way. So this one is Trauma Center New Blood. And then we also have Trauma Team, which is the third game in the series. I can't remember I think I'm missing the second one. So I have the first game and then the third game, but there is a second one in the series also for the Wii. And this one seems to be the most difficult to find these days, but anyway. I like the premise of those Operation-style games, but they work so much better with the DS stylus. Obviously, you want precise control if you're going to be operating on somebody. This is another interesting release for the Wii. This is Ultimate Shooting Collection, and it is a compilation of 3 shooters, but they're all kind of obscure titles that came out on the Japanese Dreamcast. So you have games like Chaos Field, what they call Radio Allergy here. I think it was called a little bit something different in Japan, and then also Karos, that were all, Japanese Dreamcast late releases. None of those are really my favorites. Some of them are like boss battle games, but I do think it's pretty cool that we got this in the US. Somebody definitely took a chance releasing this here, and I think over time this is going to be one of the more desirable shooters for the system to pick up. Another XSEED title I have not played. This is Valhalla Knights Elder Saga. This one's probably less my interest than compared to some of the other XSEED games, but is kind of neat that it came out on the Wii. There's also some games in that series on the PSP I'm aware of. This next one's another pretty uncommon game. This is Veggie World. It's a very crude shooter. It's one of those like kind of Japanese PC type games that seem like they were brought over to the Wii. Again, Maximum Family games, which is sometimes a sign of rarity on the system. But this one goes for quite a bit now, and you don't see it too often. It's not a very good game by any means. I took a chance on this one. I got this game Vertigo. For some reason it looked interesting to me in a store one day. I think it's another one of those like kind of marble racing games, and then it supports the balance board, which I haven't obviously tried that. Then we have another Xseed title. This is Victorious Boxers Revolution. This is based on a Japanese anime as well, and several games in the series going back to at least the PS2, maybe even earlier than that. But kind of interesting that they brought this out in the US, because there's not a whole lot of these in this series that came out here. This one also has a reversible cover, so sometimes when I see this in stores, it's flipped the other way. But I kind of like this cover with the giant boxing gloves on it. Then we have a entry in the Virtua Tennis series. I was a huge fan of the Virtua Tennis series, but by this point, it kind of worn out. And then again, I think they included motion controls in this, which weren't very accurate. I remember when I got this, I thought it was going to be great, and then ultimately didn't spend that much time with it. So stick to the earlier Virtua Tennis games, in my opinion. Next up, another weird one. This is Wacky Races Crash and Dash. I mean, basically they were bringing out obscure cartoon series that don't have a huge following by kids today, and basically anything was welcome on the Wii, so decided to grab that just for curiosity. This is another unusual Sega title you don't see much. It's the Wacky World of Sports, and has some unique mini games, party games, I guess you could call it, mixed into this. I played it a little bit, but there's, I probably need to put a little more time into this. But overall, yeah, I don't know. I don't see this very often, so I decided to grab it. Another Nintendo series that I really liked for several years until they kind of milked it dry was WarioWare, and this is the Smooth Moves release. This is one I did buy new. Again, the waggle controls kind of ruin it. This works so much better on like the DS with a stylus, or even the GBA games where they had their own unique control scheme. But these are micro games. They're a lot of fun. Just this one wasn't really one of my favorites. Another oddball Japanese character golf game is We Love Golf by Capcom, of all people. And of course, like the Tecmo game, this one has some classic Capcom characters added in. So here you have Chun-Li, and I think there's some Resident Evil characters, things like that. This game was developed by Camelot, who is the same company that made the Hot Shots golf games, so it actually is probably pretty decent. But again, I bought this because I just think it's so weird that some of these games came out in the US. I don't know. They seem very tailored to a Japanese audience. Another game that I just had to get out of curiosity. This is, again, something that I can't imagine would sell much here in the US. This is We Sing, which is a large series of karaoke games, but it's UK hits. And so it's very British-centric pop songs and things like that. It does have Blur on it. I liked seeing that in there. But other than that, most of these bands are definitely a little bit too much on the pop angle. It does have Radiohead, believe it or not, as well as Wham! So you can sing along to Wake Me Up Before You Go Go if you like. But very surprised this got released in the US, and I can't imagine they could have sold many of these. Another kind of shooter game, it's more of a gallery shooter, I guess, is Wicked Monsters Blast. This is another one that's pretty uncommon to find. It took me a long time to get this game. I actually was hunting for this, and then ultimately found it in a store, but this one seems to have dried up quite a bit, so if you see this one out there, it might be worth grabbing. This is We Play, which is a collection of just, janky mini games that Nintendo created. Why I bought this is it was actually a good deal at the time, because you got a bonus Wiimote. It was actually my second Wiimote, and then you got the disc included, which I think ended up being the same price as a Wiimote was anyway, so it was kind of a no-brainer. But ultimately the games on here didn't hold my interest very much, and ended up using the Wiimote a whole lot more. Then, of course, we have the pack-in classic, Wii Sports, which I did play quite a bit. Put quite a few hours into Wii Bowling. Still holds up to this day, and definitely was the springboard for a lot of people's Wii celebration. I should have mentioned this probably at the beginning of the video, but I think it's really cool that they included a pack-in game. Very uncommon in this era that you still got a pack-in game with the system, and I think that's why this had just such a long-lasting appeal, as they sold so many systems, and then everybody had this game and would practice this and get used to playing it. So definitely a neat game, and I think we'll go down in Wii history as one of the greats. Another Hudson Soft game. This is Wing Island. This one I have not played, but again, I was chasing all the Hudson stuff, so might be decent. Don't really have a whole lot to say about it. Then we have a interesting Capcom title that is unique to the system. This is Zack and Wiki. Quest for Barbarossa's Treasure. I guess that was the enemy, I can't remember. But anyway, this game has a nice style to it. I've played it a little bit. Again, it does have some waggling, which is unfortunate, but it is a nice little action platformer style game, so definitely welcome this game and its style to the Wii. We are getting down to the end, so we have Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. This was the second Zelda game that came out on the system. Unfortunately, I bought this one at a time when I was really busy with other games, and so I don't even think I've ever played this, to be honest, and it's kind of crazy, because all the time I've put into Zelda games over the years, this is about where my interest started to wane, so maybe someday I'll get into this one. I think it's already been remastered on other systems, so it may not even be the best way to play this game. But definitely nice to have a, at the time, unique Zelda title for the system. And then this was the one that launched with the system. This was Twilight Princess. This one I did buy when I originally bought my Wii, and I put in quite a bit of time to it, but I didn't like it as much as like the N64 Zelda game, the first one, Ocarina of Time. So overall, maybe I'd kind of outgrown Zelda at that point, but, you know, again, it was nice that this came out as a Wii title. At first, it felt like it was going to be an exclusive, but then they came out with the GameCube version at the very tail end of the GameCube, and since that one doesn't have waggle controls, now most people prefer to play that one. So pick your poison on that, but it is, you know, this game was pretty revolutionary for the time and was very, very popular when the Wii first came out. So that is a look at my pretty large Wii library. I think, again, it was about 130 or so games. Hopefully you were able to stick it through. I know the video got kind of long, but it was a lot of games to cover, and I tried to go pretty quick. Really appreciate you watching. Please have a great day or night wherever you are. Please take a moment, like, comment, subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you very much for watching.